I call the member for Fowler.
Thank you, Speaker. I move the motion relating to the cost of living in the terms in which it appears on the notice paper. We recently saw in the budget a grand plan for Australia's future. $22.7 billion for us to transition into a net zero economy over the next decade, so that we can be globally competitive within the renewable industry. This is a future made in Australia plan. It sounds very futuristic to think about and a positive goal to strive towards. But what about the present? How are people coping with the cost of living as the government is going full throttle with a net zero economy? I have spoken many times in this House about the current cost of living, cost of filling up a petrol car for many working families in my electorate of Fowler, and no doubt across Western Sydney. I was hoping to see some form of relief in the budget to a cut to fuel excise, which will benefit every working Australian. But there was nothing. Long gone is the dream of filling up a tank of your car without the stress of the price per litre. These days it seems like a game, looking for the cheapest service petrol station. Australians can expect about $100 for a full tank or more if the vehicle is larger. The tank worth $100 may not even be enough to take you throughout the week, and they may even have to refuel again. 60% of my Fowler constituents rely on their vehicles as the primary mode of transport. They commute to work, which may be outside the electorate. They commute to grocery shopping. They commute to doctor appointments. They commute to take their loved ones to and from places. What do you think it means for them? More money spent on petrol, money that they may not have during this cost of living crisis. Can you imagine students driving to university with no job having to throw down $100 just to get to class? What about apprentices having to drive to their site for formal training on apprentice wage? Do you think they can afford it? To add fuel to fire, many of my constituents have to pay heavy tolls to travel from the west to where they work, mostly in the city. The ACCC Commissioner has shared that whilst the average petrol prices decreased in the December quarter of 2023, the retail petrol prices still remain relatively high. Why hasn't the government done anything to force those energy companies to pass on cheaper fuel prices to our working people? In Australia, Australian fuel prices are not controlled by the government and is dependent on the market. I get that. However, what about the GST and fuel excise that is levied by the Australian government? This is something within the control of the government of the day. Fuel excise is a flat sales tax levied by the government on petrol bought at the browser, which is indexed twice a year in line with CPI. This is on top of the 10% GST payable. As of 5 February 2024, fuel excise levied has increased from 48.8 cents per litre to 49.6 cents per litre for every litre of petrol purchased. It may not be a small increase in the eyes of the government, but Australians can feel the pressure. Australians are already living on the edge with the cost of living. Cutting fuel excise can give the relief that Aussie needs during this time. The fuel excise was initially intended for use to build roads infrastructure, but we now know that the money collected goes to general revenue. And in times of economic crisis, why can't the government give Australians a little helping hand through cutting fuel excise? In 2022, the coalition government temporarily reduced fuel excise from 30th March 2022 to 28 September 2022, which provided significant relief to Australians following the aftermath of COVID-19. Many of my constituents were grateful for this policy and was disheartened when it ended. In the Australian Financial Review in October 2023, it was reported that the government was not prepared to provide a cut to the fuel excise. Instead, I understand the government is pushing for cars that are more fuel efficient, equipped with low emissions technologies and net zero. All well and good, but not everyone can afford an electric car. Electric cars are still novel to Australians and could cost them their entire salary. I get that cheaper electric cars from China. I get it that there are cheaper electric cars from China, but Fowler constituents are still spending their money thinly across expenses to meet the cost of living. The Australian government cannot expect us all to jump on the EVs wagon in this current economy. I know that my constituents won't be able to afford it. It is unavoidable that my constituents and many Australians must use their vehicles to get to and from the destinations. I thereby call on the government to consider indefinitely cutting the fuel excise to assist working Australians who need to make a living and can use the extra money where it actually matters, their households, families and loved ones. Australians need this relief now, and this is the most modest ask of the government. Thank you.